Have you ever considered that when you wake up in the morning, you hold a smartphone full of scientific achievements? Yet if work is going badly, you might secretly check your horoscope. And if a family member is gravely ill, besides taking them to the hospital, you might also pray for them? We pride ourselves on living in an age of reason. Yet throughout our day, we switch back and forth among science, magic, and religion, three systems that seem fundamentally opposed. Let's define these three by their essence. Science focuses on the natural order, aiming to understand and manipulate natural laws to benefit humanity in this world. Religion focuses on the supernatural order, aiming to help us align with the ultimate, transcendent authority, seeking salvation in terms of morality, society, and the afterlife. Magic acts as a conductor, attempting to channel supernatural energy to achieve this worldly goals in the physical world. It spans the domains of both science and religion. These three boxes represent the most fundamental classification of our modern world. But are they truly distinct? Why did they separate? And who decided which box holds the ultimate truth? Today, we will delve into the evolution of the relationship among these three over thousands of years. We will reveal a core argument. The banishment of magic from the modern world is less a natural victory of reason and more a double compromise, political and cognitive. To understand today's distinction, we must go back to the pre-modern world. In ancient times, the boundary between the natural and supernatural was blurred and porous. Deities, demons, and magical forces could intervene in your daily life at any moment through an ill omen, a sudden illness, or a successful divination. In that world, religion was the dominant, total system. It provided the ultimate explanation for the cosmos, morality, and human destiny. Both science and magic were embedded in the grand narrative of religion. Let's look at some specific examples. Technology and the divine. Just as ancient Egyptians needed precise knowledge of anatomy and chemistry to create mummies in service of the religious goal of eternal life, ancient Babylonians created complex astronomical and mathematical systems for the purpose of astrology. Although these techniques and knowledge were the seeds of science, their ultimate service was to the will of the gods, emperors, and magic. In the Roman Empire, the emperor himself was the Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, symbolizing the unity of religion and politics. But at the same time, the populace was still keen on various forms of personal magic. They used curse tablets against commercial rivals or love interests. They made important decisions by observing the flight of birds, augury. Here, magic was a supplementary force, helping the individual secure their worldly interests within the grand imperial order and the will of the gods. What we simply classify as superstition today, such as Hermeticism, was actually an ancient synthesis of all knowledge. It sought to establish a unified theory explaining celestial movements, alchemy, and the divine. Ancient magic was the only way early humans understood the world, sought to achieve mastery over nature, and imposed order upon a chaotic world. This tripartite worldview was shattered during the 17th and 18th century Enlightenment. This break was not inevitable, but arose from profound political, social, and cognitive needs. Europe had endured the ravages of religious wars, and society desperately needed a foundation that could transcend conflicts of private faith and offer universal consensus. Thus, thinkers began to construct a rational wall, deliberately separating the natural from the supernatural. The core weapon of this wall was empirical epistemology. Philosophers like Francis Bacon and John Locke clearly argued that only knowledge derived from our five senses and reason, through repeatable and universally applicable experiments and observations, belonged to the public sphere. This intersubjective consensus became the new social compass. This new division split the knowledge system into two: public, objective knowledge, science; private, subjective opinion, religion, and magic. This separation was essentially a political compromise. The goal of rationalists and secularists was not to completely deny God or supernatural forces, but to isolate them, keeping politics and public life free from the interference of religious fanaticism. Your private freedom of belief was protected, but you could not use your divine revelation to guide universal public policy. This is the profoundest meaning of secularization, the desacralization of public power. Once science was established as the arbiter of public truth, it began to use its new authority to launch an offensive against religion, entering an era of power reversal. In the 19th century, disciplines like anthropology, sociology, and psychology emerged, and they began treating religion as an object of study, attempting to explain the origin and function of religion through secular mechanisms. Sociology and economic determinism. Karl Marx defined religion as a product of economic exploitation, the opium of the people, believing it was a painkiller for real-world suffering. Anthropology and primitive thought. 19th century anthropologists, viewing the world through a colonial lens, regarded religion as bad science, arguing that primitive people, lacking scientific tools, could only use divine intervention to explain natural phenomena. Psychology and neurosis. Sigmund Freud regarded God as a collective neurotic delusion, a psychological projection of humanity's yearning for an omniscient, omnipotent father figure for punishment and reward. This 19th century scientific optimism, though powerful, committed the error of reductionism. They attempted to simply reduce the function of religion to social control or psychological defect. Yet they overlooked the deepest, irrational needs satisfied by religion and magic. Humanity's need for social cohesion, Durkheim's view, the search for meaning in life, and the transcendence of death and suffering. It was this underestimation of human irrational needs that prevented science from completely expelling religion, allowing it to persist powerfully in modern society in more concealed ways. Today, we live in a delicate and uneasy coexistence. In public institutions, science and religion have reached a gentleman's agreement. The doctor, science, and the priest, religion, in the hospital each attend to their duties. But in this modern game, magic is completely excluded from formal public institutions. Magic's public identity is limited to entertainment and consumerism. However, once magic attempts to cross the boundary and claim public authority, it faces a double blow. Intervention by science. If a product claims it can change your energy field to cure cancer, government agencies, like the FDA, will immediately intervene, demanding empirical scientific evidence, often imposing heavy fines. Science does not permit you to claim the ability to alter the natural order without empirical proof. Exclusion by religion. Many mainstream religious organizations also dismiss astrology, crystal healing, or even certain deep breathing exercises as mysticism and paganism, because it infringes upon the mainstream religion's monopoly on how to reach the sacred. However, this wall was built for institutions, not for individuals. Though magic has been banished by institutions, it is flourishing at an unprecedented rate in the private consumer sphere. Today's average consumer, by opting for alternative medicine, buying feng shui products, or pursuing the law of attraction, which is essentially a modern rendition of ancient sympathetic magic, is renegotiating the boundary between the natural and the supernatural in the most democratic, market-driven way possible. This phenomenon proves that the rational wall established by the Enlightenment is fragile and porous ***. The conflicts we see today, whether the ethical disputes between science and religion or the rise of alternative medicine, all point to one fact. A purely rational world is not human nature. Human history is a saga of seeking transcendence, seeking patterns, and seeking meaning. Our professor tells us, magical thinking is humanity's default position. We are fundamentally wired to believe that the world has patterns, is full of meaning, and is not a cold, random void. This is precisely why, even in the age of highest technology, people still require some form of transcendent force. Today, we must recognize that these three boxes, science, magic, and religion, are rapidly collapsing. Their interaction will determine the trajectory of our 21st century civilization. We can no longer simply dismiss magic as superstition, but must understand it as an expression of deep human needs. Do you believe that in this era where reason seems challenged, we should reinforce the wall of science, or understand and embrace this human default position of magic?